Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever it may be, and welcome to today's webinar on the scientific crystal ball, forecasting the future tourism markets. Before I begin, let me introduce myself. My name is Paul Barangan. I am the Chief of Staff at the Pacific Asia Travel Association, and I will be your host for today. We have a great lineup of speakers with us today to share some of the visitor forecasts as well as trends for 2024 and beyond. But before we get to our speakers and panel discussion, just have one quick note to share with everyone. I know that everyone has used Zoom many times over the past few years. Just as a refresher, you'll see at the bottom of your Zoom browser a couple of functions. You'll see a chat function and a Q&A. We will have time for discussions after all the presentations. So if you have any questions for any of our speakers, feel free to drop them into the Q&A as shown on your screen. Please do not use the chat function to ask any questions. Feel free to say hello, where you're from. You can comment on the presentations, but if you have a question specifically for any of the speakers, please do submit them using the Q&A function as shown on your screen. And with that, that's all my notes, and let's get right into today's webinar. And with that, joining us from the the School of Hotel and Tourism Management at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. He's the Associate Dean and Mr. and Mrs. Chan Chak Professor of International Tourism. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Haiyan Song. Professor Song.
Thank you, Paul, for the introduction. Let me share my screen first. Okay, so I guess the screen is okay, right?
Looks good.
Okay, good day, everyone. I'm here to present, representing PATA, the Asia Pacific Visitor Forecast for 2024-2026. My colleagues, Dr. Anyu Liu, is with me here as well. So if you have any technical questions, and he will be able to answer after the presentation. So the agenda for my presentation include the following. So I will give a very brief introduction, then I will talk about methodology and also present some key findings in relation to the key destinations and source market. And we also present some inbound forecasts as well as outbound forecasts. And then I will draw a few conclusions. So basically, 2023, we know the pandemic more or less ended with China opened its doors internationally, and also the economy started to rebound. So we will see the tourism also started to recover along with the economies within Asia Pacific. From January to September 2023, when we started our forecast, international tourism actually recovered up to 87% of pre-COVID level. And this actually is a result from the pent-up demand and also driven by various of improved economic conditions, although there's still some constraints like air capacity constraints and manpower constraints. Actually, within Asia Pacific, tourism recovered 87% as compared to a pre-COVID-19 level. In terms of method, probably you are already familiar with the methodology that we are using if you've attended previous webinars. Basically, this is a three-stage forecasting process. First, we actually collect the data which made available to us by PATA, and then we construct the models and also estimate the models, and then generate forecasts. And then in the second stage, we made some adjustment to the forecast if we see any anomalies and any strange forecast, then we make adjustment. And then we also make a scenario forecast, not only the point forecast for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. We also make a scenario forecast along the baseline forecast, and then eventually we make some a final adjustment based on expert view. So this is the process of forecasting. I'm not going to expand in great details, but if you want to know the methodology in details, you can look at the full report, which will be provided after the webinar. So basically, the key destinations in Asia Pacific, there are altogether 39 destinations, and which North America, the Americas has 4, and South Asia has 5, and Southeast Asia have 9, and then Northeast Asia and also West Asia, which only include Turkey, and also the Pacific, which include 13 destinations. So these are the destinations that we forecast in terms of arrivals to these destinations and also departures from this source market. So the top source market, according to the forecast, actually are still China. So if you look at our forecast in details, China still ranked #1 according to our forecast in 2024. So compare that with 2019, China was the #1 source market, followed by Hong Kong SAR. In 2019, Hong Kong SAR was ranked #2, but according to our forecast in 2024, it will rank #3, followed by US, Korea, and also Macau, China. So altogether, you can see the ranking, the top ranking, 26 source market in terms of their rankings. So these are the top source market. China, as I said, ranked #1. This actually gives you the exact tourist arrivals in 2029, 2024, based on our medium forecast or baseline forecast. And Hong Kong will receive 39 million in 2024, but still much less than 2019. In the US, actually, in 2024 will exceed the pre-COVID-19 level. And Korea is the same. In 2024, it will fully recovered, and also Macau will be fully recovered as well. So these are the top source market. And in terms of inbound forecast, let's look at the total inbound forecast to the Asia Pacific. So this diagram actually shows the total visitor arrivals to Asia Pacific for 2016 to 2026. Actually, 2023 are historical data, where 2024 and also 2026 are forecast. So you can see, according to the medium scenario, when up to 2025, the total tourist arrivals will be fully recovered by the end of 2025. And also 2026 will be 11% more than pre-COVID-19 level. So this is quite encouraging. The driving force of this recovery can be attributed to macroeconomic and global geopolitics stability, at least within Asia Pacific, and also the increase in consumer confidence after COVID-19 pandemic, the economy to start to recover, and also the confidence started to be rebuilt. And also the digital transformation in terms of a social media promotion and mobile payment. So all this actually encouraged the recovery of tourism in the region, and also supply chain resilience and also tourism infrastructure improvement. All these are contributing factors to the recovery within Asia Pacific. So in terms of sub-regions, Americas, actually this diagram shows the future trend of tourist arrivals within Americas. Actually, you can see visitor arrivals to Americas will outperform the 2019 level in 2024. So the recovery is very, very quick. And also there will be 160 million tourists will be visiting the Americas by the end of 2026. Actually, it's 11% more than pre-COVID-19 level, according to the medium scenario. And the ease of visa restrictions, mitigation of labor shortages, and also supply chain improvement all contribute to the recovery, fast recovery in the Americas. In terms of Northeast of Asia, among all the APEC sub-regions, actually Northeast Asia features the largest market share, but the lowest recovery pace under the medium scenario. And this is because the recovery of tourist arrivals to China and also to Hong Kong is relatively slow. So that's actually is the reason why, although the market share is big, but then the recovery pace is relatively slow compared with other destinations. So this region will be fully recovered by the end of 2026. There will be 330 million visitors, which will be 9% more than the pre-COVID-19 level, according to the medium scenario. And also contributing factors, including the the opening up and also connectivity within the region. So that results increased tourist arrivals in the Northeast Asia. In terms of South Asia will recover to the pre-pandemic level by the end of 2024. So it is basically this year, by the end of this year, and there will be 135% of the tourist level pre-COVID-19, according to the medium scenario. Mild scenario, according to the medium scenario, actually recover to 104% roughly. And in the medium scenario, there will be 25 million tourists visiting South Asia by the end of 2026, which is 161% of 2019 level. It's quite high, actually. If you look at the recovery rate, it's probably the fastest. And the regional safety and stability are crucial factor for this region's recovery. In terms of Southeast Asia, in the mild scenario, actually the recovery to 132% of pre-COVID-19 level, and also according to the medium scenario, is fully recovered 100%. So this actually is quite encouraging as well in this region, sub-region. In the medium scenario, Southeast Asia will receive 157 million visitors in 2026, which is 11% more than the pre-COVID-19 level. Also, these are the contributing factors, all to do with regional connectivity and also visa restrictions, and all these actually contribute to the recovery of this region. In terms of West Asia, remember, there's only one country. So with arrival to West Asia will exceed 2019 level in 2024, and both mild and the medium scenario. There will be 57 million arrivals in this region, which will result 126.2% growth of the pre-pandemic level, making West Asia the fastest recovery sub-region and the medium scenario. Again, stability is a key for the recovery. In terms of the Pacific, in the medium scenario, visitor arrivals to the Pacific will recover to the pre-COVID-19 level by the end of 2024, so end of this year. So that's just quite encouraging as well. In the medium scenario, there will be 30 million tourists to visit this sub-region, and by 2026, reaching 109.3% compared with the pre-COVID-19 level. Bilateral and multilateral visa restriction removal will further improve the recovery of this region. In terms of inbound forecast, let's look at some key destinations. In terms of USA, you will see in the medium scenario, visa arrivals to USA will reach 90.9% and 105% of the pre-COVID-19 level by the end of 2024 and also 2026 respectively. So by 2026, US will be fully recovered. Canada and Mexico will continue to dominate the US inbound market. So Canada and Mexico are the two largest source market for the US. And in terms of China, with arrivals to China in the short term, i.e. this year, the recovery of China's inbound market is lower than 80%. Perhaps this is the lowest among all the sub-regions and also countries within Asia Pacific. So by the end of 2026, it will reach 96.5%, almost fully recovered, but not quite yet, according to our mild scenario. So if you look at severe scenario, it will be even less in terms of arrivals. Hong Kong SAR will outpace Macau to become the key source market for mainland China from 2024, because Hong Kong also opened up quite late compared with Macau. Macau during the COVID-19 period had never been closed to Chinese tourists and vice versa. So that's why Macau was ahead of Hong Kong before 2024, but after 2024, Hong Kong will exceed Macau as a key source market for mainland China. Right. In terms of Thailand, Thailand's international arrivals will recover to 127% and 107% or 83% based on whatever scenario you'll be looking at by the end of 2026. China will become Thailand's dominant source market from 2024 onwards. And that is because before that, China was closed and also the recovery, Chinese outbound tourist recovery has been relatively slow. It's not as good as we would expect. But by 2024, China would become #1 source market for Thailand. And also ease of visitors' health and safety concerns, and also entry requirements, also are some of the factors that will influence tourist travel to Thailand. In terms of India, we know India actually will be a major source market, but also destination in the Asia Pacific region. In the medium scenario, visitor arrivals to India will recover to 104% and 120% of the 2019 level by the end of 2024 and 26 respectively. The inbound market structure is relatively stable. Bangladesh and the USA occupy around 20 and 30% of India's total inbound market respectively. So these are the two main source market for India. So again, the Union Budget 2023 actually will improve tourist infrastructure to accommodate potential demand surge. So this is encouraging news because this budget will allocate money towards tourism infrastructure improvement that will certainly encourage tourists to visit India. We also present Hawaii as a major destination. So strong recovery momentum, 138% in 2024, and also slow down a little bit in 2026. Well, the USA will still be the dominant market, but Japan actually will continue, the market share will continue to increase. So these are the two key source market for Hawaii. So the government support of small, medium-sized enterprises to create new visitor activities will help the islands to recover in the future. So this the inbound forecast. Now I'm going to show some outbound forecast numbers. In terms of top source market, for China, actually, China, the Hong Kong, Macau, SARs are the two main destinations for the Chinese, mainland Chinese tourists. As you can see, in 2019, Hong Kong and Macau ranked #1 and #2 respectively, but after 2024, Hong Kong and Macau still will remain #1, #2. Thailand will become #4 in 2026, but used to be #3 in 2019, followed by Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, and USA. Chinese Taipei is ranked #10 in 2019, but according to our new forecast, up to 2024, Chinese Taipei will become #7 destination for the Chinese tourists. Okay, I think I already explained this figure. So digitalization will drive China's outbound market. Social media marketing, mobile booking, health and safety concerns may actually prevent mainland Chinese outbound travel. So improvement of all this in the destinations is crucial for attracting Chinese tourists in the future. In terms of Hong Kong SAR visitor departures, of course, mainland China will be the top destination for Hong Kong residents. Macau ranked #2, followed by Japan, Thailand, Korea, Singapore, Australia, Canada, USA, and the Philippines. So these actually are the factors that will influence Hong Kong visitors to those destinations. So connectivity improvement, especially the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau bridge, will facilitate a greater outflow of visitors from Hong Kong to Macau and also to mainland China. So mainland China and Macau will receive around 53 million visitors and 8.6 million visitors from Hong Kong in 2026 respectively. So these are the two major destinations for Hong Kong tourists. Okay. In terms of USA departures, the top destinations for US tourists actually are Canada, Hawaii, China, Japan, India, Thailand, and Hong Kong SAR, Philippines, and Korea, now Australia. So there's a little bit of a reshuffle of the rankings, but not a great deal change. So more or less same in terms of the rankings as top destinations for US tourists. Okay, so 57, 47, 37 million visitors are forecast to depart from the USA to APEC region in 2026 under the 3 different scenarios respectively. So I'm interested in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong SAR forecast to be in the 14th place in 2024, but become will take the 8th place in 2026. So that's just very encouraging for Hong Kong. And also Korea's ranking will improve over time and become the 6th top destination for US visitors. So in terms of Korea, Republic of Korea, the top destination, first one is Japan, followed by China. And also this ranking remained the same before COVID-19 and also in 2026. So the ranking does not change. And these are the key destinations for Korean tourists. Okay, so Macau will become a popular destination for Korean visitors, with the ranking claiming by 3 places from 2024 to 2026. So Macau actually in the future will benefit quite a lot in terms of visitor arrivals from Korea. So these are the main figures that I would like to present today. But of course, we forecast every destinations and all source market for each destinations in the main report. So if you are interested in other destinations or other source market, you can certainly access to Pata Visitor Forecast as a member for free. But if you want to purchase the report, you are free to do so. And also in terms of the takeaways based on our forecast. So in terms of total arrivals in Asia Pacific region, there will be 910.4 million and 762.1 million and 593.3 million international visitor arrivals were visiting Asia Pacific according to 3 different scenarios. So it's quite encouraging. Even we look at the medium scenarios, 762.1 million. That's quite a lot of tourists. Actually, it's 11% more than the region received in 2019. In terms of sub-regions, Northeast Asia will restore its market share of 42 to 43% in 2026 versus 14.6% in 2022. So actually, Northeast Asia market share within Asia Pacific is quite high in before COVID, but it's very low, only 14.6%. Roughly during the COVID-19 period. But this actually will change in 2026. So this sub-region will continue to take the largest market share in terms of arrivals in Asia Pacific. In terms of source market structure, the top 5 source market, China, Hong Kong SAR, USA, Korea, and Macau. So these are the main source market for tourists within Asia Pacific region, i.e. these are the biggest country and regions that send tourists to Asia Pacific region. And the drivers of a future tourism recovery mainly relate to the microeconomic conditions. As we know, the economy is improving, especially in China. Although it is not grow as fast as used to be, but still 4 to 5% growth in the future forecast. So the economy certainly will drive tourism recovery. And also visa restriction removal is another major factors that may influence tourist flows within the region and even outbound travel to other regions and destinations. If visa restrictions are removed. As you know, China actually removed visa restrictions for 5 countries in Europe and also in Asia. So this actually certainly will encourage tourists visiting China as a result. And also regional connectivity, tourist infrastructure improvement, hygiene and safety, reinstatement of the air capacity, labor market revitalization, and also investment for digitalization. All this actually will be positively contribute the tourism recovery within Asia Pacific. With that, I think I end my presentation here. We'll be happy to take questions after other speakers present their topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Song, for that presentation. You can stop sharing and turn your camera off as we move to the next presenter. But just wanted to let everyone know, as Professor Song had said, our visitor forecast reports, the executive summary is available today. It's available now on our website. This year, actually, we're making it complimentary for all members. So if you're a POTA member, you can download the executive summary. Traditionally, in the past, it was you had to pay for it with the full reports. But as we want to extend and strengthen our benefits for our members, we have now made the executive summary complimentary and free for all POTA members. The full report will be available at the end of this month, so please do look out for that. And of course, that will be that will still remain paid for, but depending on your category, there will be discounts per category. So without further ado, quickly share my screen here. Come to our next presenter, and she's ready to present. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Senior Head of Travel Research at Euromonitor International, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Caroline Bremner. Caroline, over to you.
Great, thank you, Paul. And I'm just going to share my screen so I can run through our latest research for you today. Is that okay, Paul?
Looks good.
Great. So I'm delighted to present the latest macroeconomic outlook for tourism and the global economy. And also I'm going to run through some of the latest travel trends for 24 that we're seeing play out in Asia Pacific. So just let's have a quick sort of look at the macroeconomic outlook. So this is essentially where we're seeing we have the latest macro data from our tourism and economic model, which is our macro model. And we have a very talented team of economists who are reporting on the global economy and all the individual country economies on a monthly basis. So I'm delighted to share the very latest research with you from our January update. And so essentially we are seeing that the global economy is decelerating slightly, but it's going to go from 3% last year to 2.7% this year. And we can see that a key growth driver are the developing economies, forecast to grow at 3.9% this year. And as Professor Song said, we also have, a very sort of strong performance coming from China, but it is slowing slightly as there are some challenges such as the property sector in that country. We can see that the Eurozone narrowly avoided recession back in sort of 23 and is sort of growing very sluggishly, but at least it's positive at 0.8%. And equally, when we look at the advanced economies and the US in general, they're growing at just over 1%. It's really important to state that these are our baseline forecasts, as I say, updated monthly based on the latest view of each economy. And so when it actually comes to sort of the baseline assumptions, I just want to sort of outline that there are always different scenarios depending on what happens. So clearly we can see here the baseline, as I said, going from 3% to 2.7% this year for the global percentage GDP growth. But there are some, alternative scenarios and threats ahead. So, for example, as I mentioned with China, we could have a further slowdown. So a Chinese economic slowdown. We could, especially with the escalating tensions in the Middle East, see a sort of a commodity price hike where, essentially the conflict between Israel and Hamas potentially can have further spillovers on the wider Middle East. And then we would have challenges, for example, with the supply of oil, which would then increase the oil prices. So there are these different scenarios. Essentially, our team sort of give each scenario a different probability. And of course, the baseline is where they land and agree that that is essentially the most likely scenario. But obviously, we do still have challenges from the ongoing war in Ukraine and the fact that it has caused, this disruption to energy. We have sanctions on Russia that continue, and essentially, this has caused this sort of global sort of cost of living crisis where we've seen price hikes in energy, food, etc. So just to say, for every country, we always have these alternative scenarios to the baseline, and we update frequently. Just talking about inflation in general, as I said, we have sort of, we're kind of coming off the back of these peak inflation rates. So essentially dropping from those peaks of 9% globally to around 5.4% this year. You can see that it remains high in developing economies at 7.4%, but definitely coming down in places such as the US and the advanced economies, but on the other hand, rising slightly in China. So obviously where we have rising inflation, that is, a concern, and that's where we see sort of government stepping in to essentially sort of contain the inflation hikes through stricter monetary policy. And of course, that then leads to higher interest rates, which we've seen. And all this sort of contains and constrains the power of businesses and consumers to spend as they may have done previously. So there are definitely challenges, as I said, and we're keeping a close eye on developments, particularly those geopolitical challenges. Here we're looking at essentially the sort of the top innovation priorities for Asia-Pacific businesses. So this is based on our Voice of Industry survey, where we talk to businesses around the world and in Asia, and we ask, what are you going to be investing in over the next sort of 5 years? And it's really interesting to see that in Asia Pacific, there's a very strong alignment with consumer values. And of course, we know that, having that strong connection with consumers, tapping into their interests and passions, and aligning with those strong social and political, and of course, their concerns, is a really great way of creating these strong emotional attachments and connections to consumers. So that's the number one priority. We also have price positioning and new product development, which are the top 3 overall. Obviously, in a cost of living crisis where there are challenges such as high inflation, it's really important to strike the right quality value balance. Equally, we asked these businesses in Asia Pacific, what are your future technology investment plans? And very interesting to see that automation and robotics was right at the top of the list there. So accounting for 60% of the businesses that we spoke to in the region, followed by cloud, and of course, AI and generative AI, which have been, getting so much attention of late, such as thanks to the likes of ChatGPT, and how easy that is to sort of integrate and for consumers to use as well. Other areas that we're seeing strong investment in are sort of the future of the internet, such as Web 3.0, blockchain, Internet of Things, and of course, AR and VR, accounting for over 30% of business respondents. When it comes to generative AI in general, we can see the sort of the priorities over the short term and the long term. So looking at the next 12 months, those columns in gray, we can see that essentially the focus area for generative AI use in businesses is, to create and improve content. So obviously that helps with the likes of marketing. Equally to help social media campaigns, and also to create much more sort of intelligent shopping suggestions for consumers. And then over the long term, we can see that the continued integration into trip planning, itinerary planning for travel and, shopping. And then, of course, optimizing the supply chain as well. So it's going to become, very integrated into the whole of the supply chain over the next 5 years. So I'm just going to now change gears slightly and look at the top travel trends for 24. We can see that across Asia Pacific, looking at sales to consumers, whether they're sort of business or leisure travelers, that over the next year, we're expecting rail to be the #1 product category, growing at an impressive 50% this year. And then, interestingly, we see that sort of the shift to the experiential. So we have festivals and leisure events growing at almost 40%, museums and cultural sites, and we always see medical tourism performing extremely well in Asia Pacific because of that, holistic wellness approach that we're seeing. Equally, shopping continues to be popular, as we know. It's a very popular tourist activity. And as I say, wellness resonates very well with Asia Pacific travelers and those to the region. When it comes to the top cities that we're seeing, here we have our latest results from our top 100 city destination ranking. And it's great to see 3 Asia Pacific cities there. So Tokyo ranks 4th, Singapore is 11th, and Seoul is at number 14. So this is an index that's built across 6 different pillars. So from the economic and business performance, the general tourism performance, so integrating domestic and international tourism demand, tourism policy and attractiveness, as Professor Song mentioned, how open you are to visitation, removing restrictions and encouraging visa waivers, those kind of things. Tourism infrastructure such as hotel and lodging supply, and obviously airport infrastructure and connectivity. And then we have health and safety, and of course sustainability, which is where we look at things such as visitors to population density, pollution, climate, etc. So anybody interested, obviously, please do reach out to me afterwards and I can give you some more information. Also delighted to share with you our latest traveler segmentation. We launched this at World Travel Market. It's resonating very nicely with our clients, with our destinations that we work with. And essentially, we have used our travel survey to create 8 different traveler segments. So eco-adventurers, blended travelers that are seeking that, strong work-life balance, leisure seekers, which tend to be more in the mainstream. We've got cultural explorers, luxury seekers on the high end, digital travelers that are, completely lost without the internet, wellness worshippers that really prioritize their health and well-being, and then, of course, adventure lovers that are really interested in activities, nature-based experiences. So when it comes to the share of these traveler segments by region, we can see that leisure seekers, so the mainstream, eco-adventurers and digital travelers are resonating very well in Asia Pacific. So you can see that we have, 22% of Asia Pacific travelers or from Asian countries are leisure versus 21% that are eco and 20% that are digital. So this suggests that we really need to ensure that sort of digitalization of the whole traveler experience, the customer journey, just as Professor Song was mentioning. Equally, when it comes to the key source markets, so I've cherry-picked some of those source markets that are of most interest to Asia Pacific, whether it's the US or, Australia or intra-regional travelers themselves. And we can see that, for example, eco-adventurers are the most prevalent in Vietnam and China. So that's a really interesting sort of way to tailor and to really sort of showcase sustainable offers to those source markets. Digital travelers, we can see particularly well represented in India. And of course, we'll be sharing these slides with you afterwards so you can dig into the details. I'm just going to do a little bit of a deep dive into those luxury seekers. We can see that they are, particularly well represented in countries such as India, the Middle East, of course, Saudi and UAE, but also Thailand and China. We know that they really value the benefits and exclusive rewards that they get from their loyalty programs. So 34% really value that compared to the global average of 24%. One thing that really struck me was just how empowered they are. You know, they're very engaged socially, they're very engaged with their community, and they definitely don't want to be spoon-fed anymore. You know, we can see that 81% want to take charge and to lead others. So we really need to, you know, empower these travelers. Equally, they are highly sociable. This again was very surprising that, you know, there's a strong focus on traveling with family, with children, and only 4% traveling, you know, doing solo travel. Equally, they really value the human touch that they can get from speaking to a travel agent or an expert. So they are highly digital, so 74% booking online, but still we see 34%, you know, going in store and having that in-person experience, which is so important. So that kind of high touch service. And as I mentioned, very socially engaged, so 56% engaged with their community. So that social aspect is very important. And we should be promoting that, especially if you're, you know, improving, you know, living conditions for your staff, you're promoting equality, you know, that should be an essential part of your marketing. So just to summarize, we are seeing a Professor Song said quite rightly, this recovery, the new normal in global travel and tourism demand. Yet looking at the macroeconomic outlook, there are challenges ahead and dark clouds. And definitely we are, you know, we're seeing the impacts and potential spillover effects of those regional conflicts that we can see in Europe and the Middle East. So obviously we are keeping a close eye on that. We continue to see the appeal of top city urban destinations from Tokyo, Singapore to Seoul, but definitely a great opportunity for other secondary and tertiary destinations as well. In the short term, luxury is a sort of a good bet, but we should also be looking to those values, to those areas of interest and aligning with consumers, whether it's on eco, whether it's on adventure, wellness, where we know that there is higher value and higher spending per trip. And of course, we need to continue to be agile and have a very transformative mindset to tackle the challenges of the climate emergency and embrace digitalization across the customer journey. So thank you for inviting me to speak and looking forward to the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Caroline. And Sid, do you have any questions for Caroline? Feel free to drop them in the Q&A and we'll get to them during the panel discussion later this afternoon. Sorry, I forgot to mention there's plenty of questions regarding the PowerPoints from Professor Song. Yes, that will be available. For the other speakers, I still need to check with them on the availability if they will be share their PowerPoints or not. But I believe Professor Song is usually okay with us sharing the slides. And with that, we've come to our next presenter. Sorry, let me just share my screen real quick. And with that, oh, sorry, actually, it's not you, Tony. Our next presenter is...
Okay.
Is it? Yes, our next presenter is, he's the Vice President for Public Sector at Mastercard. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Andreas Spycher. Andreas?
Thank you, Paul. Now I'm back in this mode, which I need to learn how to. You cannot start screen sharing while other participants are sharing. So at the moment, I seem to have a problem here technically. Give me a sec. It works. Are we good? Okay.
You're all good. You're all good.
Thanks a lot. Just to make sure we have the technique. I'm going to make sure that I give enough time also to my dear friends from Amadeus and the Q&A at the back end as well. So I'm going to dovetail right into what Carolyn was mentioning about the economic situation, the slowdown, and what basically is driving at the end the new traveler segment, the experiences. And I brought a lot of charts along, and I'm going to fly through them because they're more visualizing the story that we have. It is obviously clearly that the cost of living has gone up. And I brought you here an example from Australia. You can see how the grocery spend and how the overall everyday spend on the mass market has really been tying back heavily into the budgets of the individuals. And hence, therefore, the spending capabilities of the mass segment is going to be less. And you can see this on the spend of the upper bar, where you see what their share of their disposable income, discretionary income is available for hotels and airlines. And that has obviously fundamentally been always less than the affluent segment, but they are still spending, even though that they are having a higher cost of living coming through the increased cost on groceries and automotive. They are not letting go of spending on air and vacation. Now, we're going to see other markets where this is going to slightly change. And because, again, the budgets are tight. But what you have here is you have fundamental still that backlog from COVID of a segment out there which has spend capabilities, which is affluent enough and will spend. And let's look at some of these spend data that we have. So fundamentally, I'm looking here at some of the outbound spend. Countries which are spending abroad, Australians, Japanese, Singaporeans, and Thais I took here, and what they're spending on. Carolyn mentioned a lot on experience, and you can see coming out of COVID 2022, there was still that backlog on luxury spend. People are still retail therapying and buying a lot of things. And you can start seeing how that red line is fundamentally jumping up. Very strong in Thailand, very strong in Singapore, which has always been a strong luxury retail market type of a travel behavior. Obviously also coming out of Australia, which is an outdoor society. And there's this Japan, which is below average. And I want to dive into that because you're going to see what that means for your destination. Why are Japanese spending less? And coming out of COVID, beginning of 2023, that has not even become any better. There's a currency issue that we want to talk here about. So while some markets are benefiting from a strong currency or no change in their currency valuation, the Japanese market is hugely hit by the fact of that. And you're going to see that in my next slide, how introverted the Japanese market now is in terms of spending at home. It has also been a market where cost of living has increased. Look at the right side. You know, pre-COVID versus post-COVID, the Japanese market has been hit heavily by the inflation of everyday goods, of groceries, of those type of cost of living, which you cannot, avoid. But if you look at the next side, when it comes down to their behavior in spending for travel, they're at the pars where they were behaving before, in slightly less, but affluent and mass are at the par. They're spending domestically. They're staying at home because they're having less budgets. Their currency is weak going abroad. They are staying at home. So if that was one of your core corridors, which has been in the past a driver for some of your more affluent consumer spending in your market, you got to start to tailor it down for 2024 and 2025 because you need to look at the market economics, and currency is one of the strongest ones. I'm Swiss by origin. We've got one of the strongest currencies right now in Europe. The dollar against the Swiss franc, or the euro against the Swiss franc, has dramatically decreased. Hence, it's become so expensive for many to do what Carolyn has projected. Look at experiences. And hence, again, the rail is one of those largest items on experience, and the Swiss rail system going through the Alps is one of those things. But if you can't pay for it anymore because it's become so expensive, you got to start to substitute it with other activities. So let's talk about some of those experiences. And here we are. Again, I brought you some markets, how you can really see how experiences has overtaken the overall behavior last year. And this is basically just people spending on experiences. And when we look at experiences, there's obviously multiple different experiences. There are the outdoor activities, like she's shown in her travel segments, of people wanting to go out and adventure and hike. There's the experiences around events. There's experiences around, going and dining. So dining is still a growing element, and you see that in the red curve. You have there the yellow curve being basically the entertainment experiences. And this is where you really start seeing areas where a lot of entertainment, theme parks, and outdoor activities or indoor entertainment are available. These have been dramatically growing. Now, somebody's going to ask me, what is this bump in Singapore all about? And what is this bump, in Thailand? Now, I looked at the bump in Singapore, and what happened in 2023 that spiked that bump in Singapore were fundamentally two things. One was the announcement of a couple of very key concerts coming to Singapore, Coldplay and Taylor Swift, and the other one was the F1. So you can see how people are buying tickets online for those events once these events come online. And because these are very short time windows to buy these tickets, you see these spikes going up and down. Singapore is therefore not necessarily known as an entertainment event-based city, but it's becoming that now. And hence you can start seeing how the Singapore Tourism Board is bringing more of these type of activities in and how that is driving consumer awareness to come to Singapore and do these and visit these type of events. Now, I want to talk in the last 5 minutes before I hand back to Paul about impact of these events. Here is one I brought you from the Australian Open. That's a long event over 2 weeks. And you can fundamentally see the curve on top, the spend within the CBD during the Australian Opens compared to the average spend coming across, again, neutralized and brought in the same perspective window without an Australian Open. So it really does drive your overall increased spend and engagement in a city as an event like this. Now, 2 weeks is a very long time to maintain that spend up. And I think Australia in this case is an absolute stunning example how they bring from the building up of the quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, with how they bring up the pace. And you can actually see where the dropout comes because there is a day or two where the athletes need a break, be able to recover when the finals and the semifinals go in, and that is the lighter half, the Monday, Tuesdays of the second week. Let me show you another event, which is not 2 weeks. I'm going to now take the Cricket World Cup in Australia, 2022, and there were two fundamental matches in those days where India was playing against South Africa and India was playing against Pakistan. And what you see here is the Indian spend into Australia for those days. And you see where the event day is with the red dot, and you see how that spend is driving a knock-on effect into your economy. They have traveled all the way to go for these matches, deliberately for these matches, and they're staying longer. So if you can bundle the event for that specific area and then entice them to extend the stay, you're going to get a lot more bang for the buck of that event. Let me show you another one. Here is India playing in India. Here's basically a domestic cricket game in 2023, a very important one in Gujarat, where at the end you see the hotel spent prior to the event building up as people were going there early. And why that? The cricket game is in the afternoon. It ends late. It's one of those games I don't understand the rules because they can go 4 or 5 hours. So hence at the evening of that event, you are not going to leave the place. You're going to stay there. You're going to check out the day later. Now, this is the domestic spend. So the people come up front. They don't stay longer. Another learning you have to take out of this. Let me give you another one here. This is F1 in Jeddah. So F1 in Jeddah 2023 was literally during the Ramadan period. Ramadan Eid was 3 weeks after the F1. So how do you increase F&B spend or anything like that if you are in a country which obviously is under Ramadan, trying to therefore, build up the value of that event? What we did here with the Economic Institute is create what you do with economic modeling, a synthetic group to model the situation which would have been the same way with a Ramadan 3 weeks later in a non-F1 event, to be able to understand whether the event has actually had an economic impact. And it did. It had an 8% increase overall in terms of boosting sales of that specific time period, including the Eid afterwards, as well as also for the week of the event, it actually had a 9% increase on spend. Again, people stayed longer. You see where the F1 event is, the Sunday event, and they stayed another 2 days longer and spent afterwards. Now, yes, they spend in the evening when the sun sets. Don't get me wrong. It's not that they don't spend. They came and they spent. But you could see after 2 days, the knock-on effect of that event dropped out dramatically, and it builds up again then for the Eid festivities. So how do we measure these type of things? And what does that mean? Obviously, we have insights across multiple things, how much people spend in a market and how many days do they stay and what's their average transaction size. And I want to show you this. This is an example from Japan. You can know exactly Japanese coming to Singapore, they don't come for retail therapy. Look at the third bar, only 12%. They actually do come for dining. And when we look at Singapore, where people dine, it is very clear that we have about 6 major dining areas where tourists go and dine. For those who know Singapore, I've circled you in these. Now, we have a lot of great Japanese restaurants, and these Japanese restaurants are not always visited by Japanese customers. And you can see the red circle out in the Chucha Katong area where there are a lot of Japanese restaurants happening. They don't spend. They're spending down at Boat Quay area and they're spending in Orchard, which means here there's an opportunity to start to uncrowd the centers by communicating to these visitors where are actually the opportunities for them to do in dining as they would love to dine. Let me show you the other side, the Indian market coming to Singapore. Same story again, we know how much they spend, their average lengths of stay, how much a transaction is, but you can see the Indians are very strong on retail. They do come to Singapore for retail. Their restaurant spend is far below. But now let's look again at the same 6 areas of where they can eat in India and where you would most likely see them. And what do the Indians do? They're at the classical locations, are Orchard and around the Boat Quay area. And now they go out to Little India to eat because they know that's where they will find the type of food, the variety of the food that they look for, on what they can get, what they're at home, because they would like to eat what they find at home. So what I'm showing you here is you got to take data in a wise way, map it to the geographies, and then use those insights in the newer way of marketing to market to each corridor the specific offers that you have for that corridor and where they are located in your country. And with that, Paul, back to you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. If you have any questions for Andreas, feel free to drop them in the Q&A, and we'll be back with him later into the panel discussion.
I gotta get out of this presentation mode, Paul, and I'm trying to struggle with this. Okay.
I think
Where is it here on this screen? Stop sharing. Got it.
Go. All right. Thank you very much. And we've come to our last presenter, and apologies, I jumped the gun a bit there. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Vice President and General Counsel for Asia Pacific at Amadeus Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Anthony Hoglund. Anthony, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I know we're quite short on time, so I'll try to be real quick. I've been culling a couple of slides while I'm waiting here to go faster, so give me 1 second. Okay, how's that?
Looks good.
Great. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'll be, I think, a little quicker than the rest, and hopefully I have time for a question or two. So I work at Amadeus, as you can tell, and we our data team has put together a few ideas here, a few slides. Again, this is designed to be quite light, but also thought-provoking for us. So that we actually have, I'll be showing you 5 travel trends that our data teams have come up to this year as they do their work, coming up with solutions and products, data products for some of our customers. They come up with this also. So I hope you'll find it interesting. Just quickly, the data, most of the data here is used from Amadeus data, but there's some third-party data that's been included, and I think that's pointed out when you see the slide. For those who don't know Amadeus, we process a lot of data. Okay? We sit on a lot of data. So just as a matter of scale, but in peak times during the day, we process around 17,000 transactions per second. So that's over 1 billion transactions per day, and that's end user transactions. So an airline booking, a hotel booking, seat assignment, things like that. Okay. So let's start off with the first one, and I have to say that Andreas has already introduced this topic, and that's kind of a fun one, which is music tourism. For us here in Bangkok, we had Coldplay last weekend. It's interesting to see the generational fans. My daughter and her high school student and her classmates didn't attend, but all of her teachers did, who are younger than me. Next week, there's Ed Sheeran coming here. And of course, as Andreas mentioned, we don't get Taylor Swift this year, but I think she's playing 6 nights at the Singapore National Stadium, which is 4 more than anyone else has played in one go. And of course, as you've already seen by some Mastercard data and some data that I'll show you, this has a tremendous effect on flight searches, travel searches, and travel bookings. Okay, but in any event, the music and these events are becoming more and more opportunities for travel. So one we've had in my home state of California for many years that most people may not know is Coachella. It's in the desert, and again, it brings most of the let's say, without it, the local economy wouldn't really function the same. So I think that's not surprising, but that's just some statistics about that. And then UK Music has been measuring actually people who are traveling to the UK just for music events, and actually their spend also. So you can see how large that is. So of course, when the Taylor Swift Singapore dates were announced, and also the Australia dates, which are in March also, I believe, there's a massive jump in travel search and travel bookings. We've got some statistics about Coldplay, I think, coming up in Athens and Romania that has the same effect. And now we're able to measure this and actually see it happen. So this is something to keep our eye on as a trend in 2024. Second trend is agents of influence. So this is something I think some of us have more affinity than others. For me, for example, I don't do a lot of social media, but they're becoming influencers in social media are becoming stronger and stronger, and they're reaching into the travel space. Okay, so I got this slide from my team in Nice, and I looked at these influencers. I don't know a single one of them, and maybe some of you do. So I looked one up. It was Vanessa Secco. And she has I don't know how many millions of followers, and she's a shuffle dancer. Okay, so I mean that's kind of her thing, but she's also it turns out that able to obviously drive traffic to different places, including people looking to travel. So all of these people can do that, and I think some of us in the industry who are trying to get, not necessarily say Amadeus, but others B2C are looking for more eyeballs, more traffic to their sites. Well, a lot of it comes, a booking may be direct, for example, but it may have come through an intermediary, and traditionally that's been a search engine like Google, but more and more it's coming from these types of social influencers. Okay, and you can see the stat when a TikTok #tag Amsterdam went viral in 2022, and it leads to actually flight searches and hotel searches that we can measure in our system. Okay, there's a few other things to keep an eye out for as a trend. There's new sites called Thatch, Trovatrip. They're things maybe you haven't heard of yet, but this is where actually influencers are travel influencers. You can go on and actually hire one to prepare an itinerary for you for 50 euros or something like this. They're really growing fast. So it may be something, if you haven't heard of, in 2024, you will. Okay, trend 3 is electric skyways. So what is this? Aviation has a target of 2050 to be carbon net zero. Okay, so if you can imagine, today it's 2.5% of global emissions, and has always been considered to be the hardest, or one of the hardest industries to remediate in order to remove carbon. So the point is, in 20, 30 years, we're going to see a lot of electric aircraft, and we're going to be seeing hopefully bigger aircraft, probably powered by hydrogen, but that's that's being worked on now. I think the takeaway here is this is all underway, right? And we don't see a lot of it in our day-to-day. We hear a lot about a SAF, or sustainable aviation fuel, which is an important step towards a carbon net zero future because of its lower carbon emissions. Very expensive though, but it works with existing aircraft, and it's going to be part of the process. But electric skyways, we have electric aircraft today. I think a really interesting one, if you haven't heard of it, is Joby Aviation, and I like to mention them because they're from Santa Cruz, which is right near where I grew up in California. But EVTOL is an acronym you may start hearing more of, which is electric vertical takeoff and landing. So you'll see a lot of more use of these aircraft to deliver people to events like a Taylor Swift concert from an airport and things like that. But the point here is that this is underway, and I think for most of us we haven't been aware of that, but in 2024 we may start seeing it. Okay. Intelligent concerts. This is a AI, and I'll just be real quick because it's been addressed by Carolyn, and I think in the back end in travel, companies like ours, B2B companies, we're building, of course, solutions to help our customers, usually travel providers, give a better customer experience, right, for their customers. And so, I mean, I think in Amadeus right now there are 180 AI projects ongoing. Most of this is to build efficiencies in the back end where the public won't see. And of course, a lot of those will probably go nowhere, and some will be built on and improve and become products, et cetera. But for customer-facing AI products, I think we're going to start seeing that more in 2024. These chatbots are going to get better and better and better, more useful, and even if we see them and don't use them, we're likely to start using them because of that. And then, as was mentioned, I mean, we're going to probably move into, it'll be interesting to see how we change from entering specific dates, locations, business class, economy class in a let's say a meta search like Kayak or Skyscanner, and just enter a sentence in a Gen AI tool, which will start returning results, and we'll start entering more prompts, and pretty soon we're going to be presented with 3 or 4 bookable options. So that evolution will happen, and we'll start seeing more of it now. Again, it's AI will really help the industry improve the customer experience, and I think that's kind of exciting to see. Okay, I mean, this is just a slide to quote the, I think, founder of Airbnb, but I think he states the obvious: AI will radically change his service and the rest of the industry. And then finally, the last trend here: business lux light. So, I mean, we've kind of gone through this experience in economy class. Everything's been debundled, so you can buy a certain family or et cetera of a fare and get some items bundled, or you can go a la carte and buy things that you need. It was the next evolution of retailing in airline distribution. We're starting to see it now in the front of the plane. Okay, so I think a good example is I'm flying Finnair to Europe next week, and it's one of those business class fares that's bare bones, right? I cannot reserve a seat in advance. So those are things we're accustomed to seeing in economy class, but more and more there's going to be debundling in business class, because there's a niche market there for people just looking for a comfortable seat, for example. Meanwhile, at the same time, as you see in the other box here, new enhanced business class products. So more and more we'll have, and you may have seen that in the press, we're going to get some really innovative improvements in like seat technology, if that's a term. And I think it's quite remarkable how some of the high-end products in business class are improving and will improve. And another point of that is that more and more there's an evolving distribution methods for airlines. So those of us who either book directly with an airline or book through an intermediary like an online travel agency or a travel management company will start to actually see those products visible before we make a purchasing decision. So that's what's ahead of us in 2024, and I'll leave it there, Paul.
Right. Thank you very much, Tony. And I'll ask all the speakers to come back. If you can stay with us, Tony. I know we don't have much time, but I'm just going to ask a couple questions, and then we'll go to the last one by Karen here. So actually, the first question actually is just for Professor Song, because you had actually mentioned in your presentation the importance of India, especially outbound Indian outbounds. Unfortunately, you didn't have a slide about that, but can you share any insights about sort of the Indian outbound? So maybe their top destinations that they're going to, and those rankings and how they might change from 2024 to 2026?
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, our Indian outbound tourist market actually is predicted to be increasing steadily over the next few years. According to our medium scenario, actually the top 4 destinations for Indian tourists in the Asia Pacific region actually are first Thailand, second USA, and then Singapore and China will be the 4th top destinations for India. And also those destinations probably will remain unchanged for quite a long period of time. It is actually one of the striking thing is that somehow Macau, SAR in China, will be the fastest growing destination for India, although the starting point in terms of arrival is low, but in the next few years, the average growth rate will be around 28 to 30% per annum, which is very interesting. So Macau will be very happy to receive a lot of Indian tourists in the next few years. I think that's some overall trend in terms of Indian outbound tourists. So the top destinations perhaps are not surprising, but there may be some new destinations for Indian tourists, which we will be further look at in the future.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Very interesting to hear about Macau. I'd like to definitely at some point we'd love to dive in to see that and why that is increasing. But I know we don't have much time, so I want to get to just one question. This is a question for Caroline, Andreas, and Tony. You guys all highlighted sort of the events, you know, the impact of the events, especially large-scale events like Taylor Swift, F1, cricket. And a lot of them are taking place in like the major cities like Singapore, Tokyo. But then how can a secondary or tertiary destination even compete or even leverage a significant event like that? So I just want to hear your sort of thoughts. You know, if you were in a secondary or tertiary destination, how would you sort of leverage it or compete in that arena?
Ladies,
I can go first. Oh,
Ladies-
oh no, and Andreas,
ladies
you go.
first. No, ladies first. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just going to mention I'm based in Scotland, and basically we have the International Edinburgh Festival every year. And so the whole of Scotland tries to sort of, you know, up their game and to, you know, and they're very much, you know, enjoy that there's this focus on Scotland. And for example, just along the coast in East Lothian, North Berwick, for example, has their own fringe. So, you know, drawing people away from the centre of Edinburgh to, you know, the sort of, you know, the secondary, third destinations. But I'm just also thinking it can be cross-border as well. So if we think about what happened with Qatar hosting the World Cup and the benefit to the wider region in the Middle East, UAE, really sort of, you know, benefiting from that attraction and the visitation levels being very high. So over to you, Andreas.
Thank you, Caroline. I'd like to just add two components to that. Paul, it's not just the big cities. Scotland's a great example. Gothenburg. Who knows Gothenburg? It's the city of Volvo, but it's in Sweden, and they're known for their outdoor festivals in the summer, where people come from Metallica headbanging. Next day they go to the in amusement parks. Switzerland in the summer has 14 outdoor music festivals, all located away from Zurich and Geneva, and they have the Montreux Jazz Festival, and they have the Lugano Festival. What a tourism organization is doing very well is starting to promote these things, and they become the magnet at the end. It's not Zurich in the summer which becomes the magnet. It's only the entry point. Come over to Singapore. Singapore Tourism Board is right now trying to bring the neighborhood areas into their communication, and hence the spend data and the geography that we show them help them exactly craft those messages. Taking Caroline's profiles, who goes where and how, why they're coming to a destination, you need to change the content of your communication to drive that. It's not wrong to come to Bangkok for a Coldplay concert, but then you can spend the day in Kanchanaburi or Khao Yai, which is not that far away, to go and spend an extra day or two to recover from the Coldplay concert or from the Taylor Swift concert. It's how you package the content.
Yeah, okay. I'll just add one comment. I mean, I don't know if Chiang Mai for Thailand, for example, because I'm based in Bangkok, but if Chiang Mai or Phuket are considered secondary, I think generally maybe not quite, but Taylor Swift isn't going to be playing a concert in Chiang Mai, right? I mean, so they need to leverage the strengths that they have, and here in Thailand, there's a more of a push now towards a soft power Thai culture approach of food festivals and film, I think, and Thai boxing, and these are the things where perhaps Chiang Mai, for example, again, perhaps not a secondary location, but has just as much or more to offer than any other location in Thailand. So play to the strengths.
We're running out of time, but I do want to get to this one question from Karen. Karen from TTG Asia. This is for all of our speakers here. Which emerging markets in APAC should travel and tourism businesses pay attention to? Good question.
You know where you cut the line of emerging? That's my part. I would leave it to the professor first, and afterwards I give you my personal view.
Professor Saul?
Well, I think probably, although Middle East is not within Asia Pacific, but these Middle East countries like Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and other countries will become important destinations, at least for Chinese tourists in the future. So I think tourism businesses should pay attention to the growth of tourist flows from Asia Pacific to Middle East.
Andreas?
I'll give you my spend data insight. It's not a country as a market. Look at in those destinations. Look at Borneo being part of Malaysia being the next big push. Look at Sulawesi as part of Indonesia being the next big push. Sapa, everybody knows in Vietnam, and the Mekong Delta, everybody knows, and everybody's been to Da Nang. They've seen these three areas. Hanchai, go those places. Japan, everybody's gone to Kyoto and gone to Osaka. What about Nara? So it is those things which are coming up on the map as around Asia Pacific. And you'll see this in Amadeus's data, is that's where the low-cost carriers are opening up first and the network carriers are pulling on. That's where the fares are out there actually on the low-cost carriers, and that's where you keep your eyes on, because those guys are trying to ride the wave before the network carriers come in with the products that at the end take their margins.
Well, Tony, he just mentioned Amadeus. You want to chime in?
No, I just second what Andreas just mentioned. I mean, we've seen a sea change a bit in commercial aviation after COVID, because LCCs they've gained share, they're growing faster. It seems now, after a little bit of distance, to be a fundamental change. So I think look, they've got a low cost model and stuff, but when they open up a flight somewhere, such as to Haiyan, for example, which I know people are working on, that's really going to open up a lot of opportunity for the industry in locations that are underserved like that.
So really keep an eye out on the low cost carriers and the routes that they're looking at, huh? All right, Caroline, I guess you'll be the last one to answer as we wrap this up here.
I'm just some of the trends that we're seeing. So, for example, if a destination is featured in a Netflix series, for example, you have the jet setting effect. So, again, we've seen that in Singapore, we've seen it, everywhere in Asia, Japan to Thailand. But one thing I would focus on as well is don't forget your domestic tourism market. So yes, we're all chasing the international high spending market, but it's really important to have that resilience built into the system. So equally, we need to be not ignoring that domestic visitor. And also, that's where we see if we see Asia Pacific as the growth driver of the global economy, then your domestic tourism market is very much going to benefit from that rising middle class. And obviously, the next generations coming up, not just millennials, but the alphas and the Gen Zs.
Yeah, I totally agree with Carolina's comments on the domestic market. If you look at China, actually, there's a despairing tourism internationally, Chinese tourists, but actually all of them are traveling within China. So the domestic tourism in China is booming, a double in some instance. So yeah, domestic tourism will be important market for all businesses to pay attention to in the future.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I did see a slide from another presentation a couple of weeks ago that said where are Chinese travelers traveling to, and really it was just all destinations in China, and really not as much outside as people expected. All right, we are way over time, but so I don't want to keep you guys here that much longer. I know for some of you it's a bit late. So thank you so much to Andreas, Tony, Professor Song, Caroline, as well as Dr. Liu for answering a lot of the questions here that came in. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll do a quick wrap up and answer just some questions here some general questions here that were here. But again, thank you so much for your time and your presentation today. It was very insightful. I saw some good comments here from a lot of participants. So thank you so much, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Happy traveling.
And happy Chinese New Year.
Happy Chinese New Year. Yes,
Happy
that's
Chinese
right.
New Year,
Happy
Professor
Chinese
Song,
New
Dr.
Year.
Liu. Happy Chinese
Right.
New Year.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, everyone keeps asking about the PowerPoint presentations. What happens is that we will be sending an email to all delegates where you can download the presentations. Now, not all the presentations may be available. We do need to check with each speaker to see if they will allow us to share it, but we will inform you regardless of if they will share it or if you need to contact them directly. But there will be an email that gets sent out to all delegates who registered here today. The email will also have a link to the recording of today's webinar. So if you missed any part of it, you can go back and watch it. So that's the first question. There was a question about Africa. Unfortunately, Africa isn't within our within the Asia Pacific, our definition of Asia Pacific region. So that's why it's not included within our forecasts or in this discussion. And then to one last question here about some other destinations, why aren't they included? The thing is, we need data, at least 10-year historical data. Some destinations don't have that available. Some like Kazakhstan, I think we've asked in the past, they don't. So it's just tough for us to collect data and get the correct 10-year historical data. Some destinations that were shown here today, it's on a short period of time, so we can't go through all of the destinations that are featured in the report. If you want to know about your destination, like in Indonesia or Maldives, feel free to purchase the full reports, or we also do have the individual destination reports that will be released later this year, and we will let you know when that happens. So hopefully that answers a lot of the questions in general that have come here. So now, as I quickly end this, just want to just wrap up. As it was mentioned earlier today, the executive summary of our forecast report is available now on our website. Just go to our website, go to the POTA catalog. If you're a POTA member, you can download it for free. If you're not a member, why haven't you joined us? So join us today. If you want more information on how to become a member, feel free to reach out to me. The full report will be released later this month. And then, of course, there will be the 39 destination reports as well. And sorry, what? And of course, 39 destinations later this year. Okay. Now, if you enjoyed this webinar, please do stay in touch with us for any future webinars coming up. We do have a youth webinar that's happening later in February. So if you're a youth and you're interested, it's about Thailand tourism, and it's very interesting. We have TAT speaking, Imtiaz Mukbil, who's a brilliant historian about Thai tourism. So please do join us. Information on our websites. A couple events I want to make you aware about. We have our POTA International Conference on Women in Travel, which is happening on March 20th to 22nd in Bohol, Philippines. The event is complimentary, so you don't have to pay for the event. However, we do ask everyone to give a $10 contribution to offset your carbon footprints. So please do join us. Registration is open. You can register today. As well, our second event of this year is our POTA Annual Summits under the theme Reimagining Tourism, which is happening in Macau at the Grand Lisboa Palace Resort, hosted by the Macau Government Tourism Office, as well as co-hosted by SJM Resorts. The program is up. We have some confirmed speakers, so feel free to register today. Any questions about any of the activities, today's webinar, feel free to email me. My email address is right here. More information about PATA, you can just go visit our website, www.pada.org. So with that, thank you again to all of our speakers for spending their time with us today. Very insightful presentation. As always, thank you to our members, our chapter members, our partners for the continued support of the association, without which none of this is possible. And last but not least, thank you to all of you for joining us for today's webinar, and I will see you next time. Take care.